Hello, Linda Hack. How are you doing?
Alisa, it's so nice to see you. I'm doing really well.
That's awesome. I've been meaning to get you on the radio show and YouTube, etc., because I'm just fascinated by what you do. And I remember the very first time I heard about light language was at one of the Jamie Butler events. I can't remember if it was one in Denver, maybe San Diego. I don't know. I didn't know what light language was, but I did, and you're going to explain to us. But I do remember booking a session with Jeannie Barnes, and she's this angelic channeler. And I thought it was really odd because she would say what I thought was just gibberish, blah, 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 and then translate it. Blah, 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 and I don't know, maybe that was light language too. But Linda Hack, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, your journey, how you got here, etc.
Well, I have been wanting to tell this story for a very long time. And on my Facebook, or not my Facebook, but in my website, I tell a little bit more about the story. But actually, what happened to me was the Holy Spirit entered my soul when I was at 12 years old.
Well, what is the Holy Spirit? And
The Holy Spirit is part of the Trinity.
before we forget, tell us your website, because people sometimes stop before the end where I put all the information. So go ahead, tell that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's real simple. It's channelingbylindalee.com.
Oh, that's easy. All right.
It's nice and easy. Yep.
Yeah. And I'll remember to have you repeat that toward the end too. And also, I want you guys to please subscribe to the YouTube channel here, and also like the Healing Erik Facebook page. All right, go for it, Linda. No more
Good
interruptions.
job.
Maybe.
That's okay. So you asked me what the Holy Spirit is. Well, you've heard about the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Okay,
Yeah,
it's a Trinity. It's one.
Never knew what the Holy Ghost was. I went to Catholic church for the first, I don't know, 6 years of my life. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, I can't even give you a specific answer that would definitively separate the three of them. So my indication and intuition tells me they're all one and the same. It's God's source.
Yeah, everything is God, right?
Yes, right. Yes, it is. So at age 12, I was in Los Angeles at my great-grandparents' house, who they themselves, when they were younger, before they retired, were Pentecostal preachers.
Oh, boy.
And many times I've been in this church with her during my summer vacations, and it never meant anything to me. But anybody that's ever been to a church know at the end of the service, they do this calling. They play this heart-wrenching music that just, makes your tears start flowing, all that good stuff. Well, being a 12-year-old kid, it never meant anything to me. But this particular day, it did. And I didn't know why. And I remember sitting right next to my grandmother, and I was having all these emotional urges to go down in the front of the church. Now, you can understand how a 12-year-old might feel about that.
Yeah.
So then my grandmother just gently touches my leg and pats my leg, and she says, without me even expressing to her about what I was feeling, says, "It's time for you to go. They're calling you." And I was like, whoa. How does she know? Right? How does she know?
God, was she a medium?
Not that I knew of, just very grave intuition, but she could have been, because I was only 12 and I didn't question. I didn't even know what the word medium meant at age 12. Okay. So I didn't question any of it. But I went because it was just so overpowering. So I went down to the front, and they have the elders stand behind you, and the minister or the preacher, touches you, and he's praying. And I, to be honest with you, I can't remember whether he was praying in tongue or if he was just praying, period. And I think he was it's kind of like coming back a little bit to me. He was asking the Holy Spirit to enter me. So I went down. They call it being slain in the spirit, where you actually, for a few seconds, you actually lose complete, it's like being passed out. It's like you can't see anything around you. You're just like in this little tiny black space for just a fraction of time. And when I came back to, and of course I don't know how long that was, but to me it was like a fraction of time, I was speaking in tongue.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, so wait, were you out of body in that time, you think? Is that why it was all
I don't think so. I have no idea of what happened during that 2 seconds. I have no recollection.
You would probably be seeing you hovering above your body and seeing everything.
Saw nothing. It was just like I went down and woke up a few minutes later, or however long it was. And when I did wake up, I was speaking in tongues. And speaking in light language is a more modern terminology for speaking in tongue. They call it light language, soul language, language of light. I guess there's probably a couple of other terms that I haven't heard yet. But in my heart, I feel, and my intuition tells me this is all of the same. And the purpose, I just was doing a little research on this just so that I might even understand it better to answer some of your questions. You're so great at opposing or bringing on questions. It's just marvelous. So I went yesterday and I did a little reading about that, what is speaking in tongues. And there's 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit, and one of them is speaking in tongues, and one of them is speaking the interpretation. Another one is the ability to heal. Another one is the high intuition. Another one is to speak to souls. They're all there, and that's why I have a hard time understanding why any religious being thinks that what we do is against God's will, because also in the Bible it tells us that we are capable of doing everything that Jesus showed us when he walked the earth.
We are whole and part of God.
Exactly.
What is the interpretation gift? What, interpreting tongues, I guess?
Yes, it would be like with your friend, the one that you were just talking about. She would she'd bring out it in the tongue, and then she would translate it for you.
Now, before you go on to explain light language, let me ask you, how did your 12-year-old self respond?
Good question. Really good question. Because I had been exposed to speaking the tongues through my grandma's church, I wasn't shocked by it or anything, but I also wasn't nurtured by it. And I remember the next time that she and I went back to church, I decided I had the urge to, and a lot of people say that they just can't control it. They have no control over it all. When it wants to come out, it just comes out. So that's kind of how it was early on for me. But she told me then, she said, no, you mustn't do that. You mustn't do that. So right away, although I was giving this ability, it was kind of squashed down at the same time, because she was saying, no, you just can't let it flow. You must control this. You must be able to control this. So
explanation for that?
I'm not quite sure, other than possibly from her point of view, being my great grandmother, she didn't want this 12-year-old girl jumping up and thinking that she could explain the world to a whole audience of adults. So, and that's just a logical explanation that I could come up with. I didn't question things. I was brought up a little bit like you, where children would be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
We never learned how to express our emotions. We never had the opportunity to express fear or hate or love and anything. We never learned how to express ourselves. We weren't allowed to learn that process while we were growing up. So I didn't question her.
Yeah, we were just like knickknacks on the mantle. That's it. So
and occasionally we'd get knocked over,
No. Were you proud as a 12-year-old? Ashamed? Embarrassed? How did you feel about this new ability?
I didn't think about it at all.
Oh, okay, good. I hope you didn't answer that already. Stop it, Bella, because I was checking my sound settings. Okay, so proceed.
I didn't question it. I left for the summer. I went back home to San Diego. This was in Los Angeles. There was a huge church called Amy McPherson's Foursquare Church. I'm pretty sure it's still under that name, but I'm not 100% sure. It's called the Los Angeles Temple, and it's in Echo Park, Los Angeles. And my grandparents only lived a few blocks from there.
Okay.
So I went back to San Diego, and I never returned to my great-grandparents' house for summers anymore after that summer. And I don't even know that my mother knew that I had that experience, or anybody in my family knew I had that experience. I don't know if my grandmother told my mother that I had that experience. She never asked me about it. I never talked about it. I never even used it. The only time I used it for myself later on in life was when I was bringing up children, young adults, trying to find my way, when things got just, it's just like life itself, you know, when things are really shitty for us, we go to church. Things are really good for us, we go have a drink, you know? Yeah. So when things were really...
A drink on both sides.
Exactly. Well, yeah. but that's kind of how I was handling my life. But when it got very, very stressful at that time, while I was going through the experiences that I was going through, I would then use my tongue to pray, because my mind didn't know what to ask for. My mind had no idea. All my mind knew was I was in pain. So I would call on it. And yesterday, reading what I read about it, that's what the Bible tells you it's for. It's for those who want to pray that do not know what their soul needs. So they have this ability to speak in this language. And there's more than one language. There's some people, when they begin speaking in tongue, I'm going to call it tongue here for the purpose of this interview. When they begin speaking in this tongue, they can speak another language that you can hear anywhere in the world. Like they can suddenly speak Chinese, or they can suddenly speak French, or they can speak. So that's how some people receive it. And then there's
so easily got those high school's foreign language credits, man. That was
yeah, all of us, right?
Oh.
Yeah. And then there's the angelic light language tongue, and that's what I received. I received the angelic light language. And I know it's angelic. I can feel it. I can feel that it's angelic. But what happens with me in sharing my light language now, and you yourself was in person at one of the events at Terry's house in Houston, and watched what I did,
exactly.
And or heard the story.
I felt tingling on my head. I felt like I was receiving some sort of cool message. But you'll go into that, of course, later.
Yeah. So what I know now is that not everybody asks to receive that ability. And there are many people out there that are on their path of awakening, but they don't know how or what to ask for. And what happens with me when I'm sharing my light language with another, I oftentimes initiate that ability to open up in them, because what I'm doing when I'm channeling the language, I'm channeling from their higher selves, not my higher selves.
From who?
For them.
Whose higher self?
I'm going to call them the client or the recipient of my light language.
No, I thought so does it ever come from like an angelic being?
Yes, I also can channel that as well.
Okay.
But when I'm doing individual, what I call hands-on light language for an individual, I'm actually channeling their higher selves, and their higher self is delivering through the light language the opportunity for them to allow them to initiate that ability within them, because we all have that ability to be able to speak in the light language and to pray in the light language. And if they've reached that point on their path for that to open, generally within a few hours, that will happen. If they haven't quite got to that point on their path as of yet, then it might come to them later on down the line. Like I've had some of my clients come back and say, 6 months later, now I'm speaking, right? Or I have somebody 3 hours later say, oh my God, I got in my car. Like at the Houston event, we had 3 people start speaking in the language the first day.
Well, okay, so how did they start? Did they just open their mouth and just...
Yep. No conscious thought, just like what happened to me the first time when I was 12 years old. No conscious thought, it just suddenly starts pouring out.
Wow, so you like make up a bunch of syllables like la 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 la, and then it starts to change, or that's weird. I don't think I've experienced that. Sure.
The persons who have gotten back to me about this ability awakening within them said it was just it's not that they were trying to make sounds, it's just that it just began to flow. It just began to flow. And that's how it is with me. I can speak English to you all long, and then in a drop of a hat, I can bring forward the light language.
Yeah.
And I think I learned how to do that, and how to control that, because my grandmother told me, no, you must know how to control this.
Yeah.
The spirit will tell you when you need to do this, and the spirit will share with you when the opportunity is available to you to use that. And that's kind of what happens with me.
Well, I want to back up and ask one question I wrote down. Can you explain to the audience, the viewers, what awakening is, what that really means, and how you know if you are awakening or have awakened?
Well, I think anybody who is researching, anybody who is reaching out, investigating, reading, researching, they've maybe had an experience, maybe they've had a dream, maybe they've had somebody say something to them, maybe they've been initiated through somebody like myself or somebody else, because there's a lot of people out there that now speak in the tongue. That anything that creates seeking, they're seeking answers, they're looking for, like you did. Yeah. Just like you did when you lost your son. You started seeking to find answers. So anybody who has found themselves seeking to answer questions because of something that was has arisen within them from many, many different paths is possible.
An Erik prank might do it. Yeah.
So that's a person who is is awakening. When you start searching, you're awakening. That's what's happening. You're being led. That's how I was led through, and I'm getting cold chills all over me. Thank you, Erik. By Erik to allow myself to share what I do and share this ability that I have, which all happened. I don't know if you want to go into that area, but it all happened because of channeling Erik and channeling Erik's blog.
But first of all, okay, so now we know how you can tell if you are on the process of awakening.
Awakening
is being awake. Once you've gotten there, what is that?
Well, the best answer that I can come up with on that one is that when you are able to forgive, don't forget, but when you are able to forgive, and when you have found the way to love yourself just the way you are, with all of what human perfections we see, you know, any imperfection that we have in our physical makeup and body, those are humans' opinion of what's imperfect. It's not God's or Source's opinion of what's imperfect, because there is nothing that's imperfect. Everything is perfect, right? And so when a person reaches that goal, when they find self-love, doesn't make any difference whether you're too tall, too short, too fat, too skinny, got crooked, arthritic fingers, doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
When you fall in love with you and you have found a way to find forgiveness for yourself, for your own heart, because your forgiveness is not for somebody else, it's for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
When you find those two places, you are awakened, in my opinion.
Forgiving my father.
Yes.
Okay. But me not being able to forgive yet my sister.
Yep.
I'm working on that. So I'm not awake. I'm awakening, but I'm not awake.
Yep. You are awakening. Giving forgiveness is probably one of, well, actually, those are the two hardest things that we have to do as awakened souls, is learn to love ourselves and to learn what forgiveness is. And forgiveness is, like my grandmother used to say, anger, because that's generally what institutes needing forgiveness, because we're angry at somebody. Angry is what grandma used to say was the devil's tool. Yeah. But we know there is no devil, so that doesn't work. So the anger is the tool itself.
Yes, exactly.
That's the tool. And when you are able to let go of that anger and accept the fact that every experience you've had with that person that holds that anger within you, that you hold that anger in with, also had a contract with you to push those buttons and to be that person that they are for the path that you asked to live on.
That's true. So you have to find the value in whatever it is that angers you. because there's
Yes,
value in every experience, negative,
absolutely.
positive. All right, so
Right.
tell me about how you got you stumbled upon channeling Eric, how that whole process was. And
I was divinely led.
they always giggle when I ask that. Like,
It was divinely directed. I was living in Arizona at the time, and my family, my immediate family, all my children and grandchildren were in Florida, but I was in Arizona with my husband helping my older sister take care of my aging parents. And I was there for 7 years. So while I was there, my daughter calls me on the phone. She's very, very concerned about her daughter, who's a teenager at the time. And she says, Mom, I'm afraid Allie's going to hurt herself. So after I got on the phone call with my daughter, I simply typed in the words childhood suicide.
oh yeah.
And Eric's was the first one that popped up.
Wow.
And immediately tears just started flowing down my cheeks. And I had no idea why I was crying. In fact, I'm having a hard time fighting it now, just reliving those moments.
Yeah.
But it started me on my pursuit of awakening at that point. Because, and by the way, I want everybody to know who's listening to this child grew up, she's happy, she's 21, she's healthy, she never did anything to hurt herself.
Great.
It was just a path that somebody used to get me to channeling Erik.
Okay.
So, and I know there are hundreds and hundreds of stories out there very much like mine. But what happened to me with that, I got on there and it taught me so much. I learned so much. I learned through your blog what love is. I really learned what love was. And then,
love too. Yeah, I learned along with everybody else. Thank God.
Yes. And then the obstacles were then slowly put in front of me. You might almost want to say I was being tested to understand what I was learning. And one of the things that I had to learn was about loving of one person loving another, that there are no, there's love has no boundaries. It has no boundaries. If you're going to love another woman, you love another woman. You love from your heart. If you're a man and you love another man, you love from your heart. So then I had several of my grandchildren come out when they turned 18 years. So now I learned all this love before they came out. Oh, so I could embrace them. And I could embrace them. I could hold them. I could love them. I could help my other family members understand it and accept it. And all of that was because I found channeling Erik. He helped me grow up and he helped me learn all about love. And then through that, as you know, other little things kind of branch off here and branch off there. And then Audie Heron came in.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And Audie Heron was the only person that I told about my speaking in tongues. And I told him, and he said, well, Linda, this isn't for you. You're supposed to be sharing this. And I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. People are going to think I'm crazy, right? And then he passed away. So when he passed away, that night or the next night, he said to me, okay, it's time. Because he had suggested that I do a little tape and share it in this very small group called Audie's Angels.
Oh, yeah.
So after he passed away, to honor him, I did that. And little did I know that it was going to lead me where I have gone today and where I am today. And all of that came from finding channeling Erik and you.
Audie.
Mm-hmm. And Audie, because I would have never found Audie without channeling Erik.
Oh, yeah.
The paths.
I never met him. It's too bad.
He was a wonderful man. A lot like Ryan.
Yeah. And
our lovely Ryan. Yep. In fact, Audie worked with Ryan.
That's right. And unfortunately, Ryan recently passed away. Really
miss him greatly.
So
he has come to me. He has come to me and told me to tell everybody, do not cry for me.
No, he's happy, but we're not.
Mm-hmm. I know. That's what I told him.
So, when do you decide to not use the light language from their higher soul, but instead, from some angelic being?
Angelic being?
Yeah. And
well,
what kind of angelic beings? Do they have names? Are they guardian angels? Are they Archangels, I mean.
Gotta get this light on my balls here. Actually, what happens to me is I get a knowing comes into me. If an archangel is going to step in and wants to speak instead of the higher self, they tell me, and they tell me who they are. They'll tell me what angel they might be. I work an awful lot with Archangel Michael, which a lot of people do, but some of the archangels, the other archangels will also step into, but they always tell me it's not coming from that person's higher self. Okay. And when I get no notification of who's coming through, then I know that's coming from the other person's higher self.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you want to do next? Do you want to give a demonstration or
oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want. Do you want to download something or upload? What is it? Download or upload to the class or to it's your show. Take it away.
Well, I can do what, and we can classify it as an activation. Hold on just a minute. Eric's talking to me, so hold on.
Okay. Mr. Chatty.
No, I'm not going to say that.
God.
Okay, so he's telling me that he's going to come through with a light language.
Oh, okay.
So Erik
is going to be channeling his language. Oh my God! Light language come with F-bombs.
Well, that's he kind of just used that one with me. So, and that's what I said. I'm not going to say that. he's just laughing at me, but he's saying he wants to bring it forward. And he's telling me that it's going to be a healing for everybody who is in pain and hurting.
Oh. So activation, wait, what does activation mean? Sorry, Linda.
Hang on. Okay. So that's what it is. I said I was going to do an activation. He stepped in the middle and said, no, you're not. I'm going to come through. So he's coming through. And he's telling me that he's coming through to help everybody deal with the pain of the loss. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's it. Audie is with him. Audie's standing right next to him.
Hello, Audie.
Adam is there too. They're all there.
Oh, Adam. Sarah's
yeah, Adam's there.
Sarah's
yes.
Adam? Okay, good.
Sarah's Adam. Yeah, they're all together. They've got this inner thing, like they're standing together.
Oh,
so
the Three Musketeers.
I'm asking. Yes, exactly. That's what I see. I'm asking him if all three of them are going to be involved with this, or is it just? Erik says, just wait and see. You'll know. Like, okay. All right. So I will suggest to whoever's watching this video that if they want to set a particular intention for themselves to do so, I will also suggest that while they're listening to it, they put on headphones because it is much more effective when you're listening to it through headphones.
Okay. Well, should I put on my headphones?
If you wish, yeah.
I think it will, I need to pause the recording because it does something weird to the recording. So I'm just going to pause. Okay. All right, we have resumed the recording. Now I have like a good girl. Okay.
Okay, so everybody have your headphones on to listen to the light language. Energy's coming in. It's very, very powerful.
I'm closing my eyes.
Okay. Alimbiki di dama burihama di bikamba di bianda la bakutama di hiabaya mo yambe kali pari pari abaga yamba bodi si amalo Amalaya na la bahai ai ko di yamba la ha ali ototata mamaki ala bo siama niya alai the hiya manyo seki an nebiki ko sarama inde di ata la ota the hina ma la hendi an la yota la riti ya kamalo ko pa the city apala ni apaha le piku a menini shu ala bayandai ไปใครใช้ลายไม้แต่ที่ไปแล้วพระพุทธเจ้าอะไรว่านะว่าใครสุขชัวมันแต่ให้นี่มันที่เขาสวยอ่ะไปให้เลยไปให้ดูเชื่ออาตาเด็กที่อดีตไปให้ได้อ่ะไปให้เลยหัวท่าไปที่อาตัวไปที่อาประตูไปไทยเลยไปให้แต่นั้นพอจะหาอดีตเจริญมันเนาะไปได้ที่พวกเขาสั่งอาหารไปที่ทูชีพีทีท่านามันผู้ by DD a boko la bagishi amania by T pa kuto juana by kaya makoti kidi kana by DD yamaway ama then day land by ha about the is by a BG ho they say they are by KD on boko la my digi they amale eso ota by die they didn't die boutique apako and they did ya na ba ho time kind siki T amba T ใช่ตัวอยากทราบที่ยังบ้าใครที่ยังบ้าที่เดียสิบีที่ยังบ้าที่อยากทราบตัวเป็นสิ่งที่ยังไม่ควรจะบอกว่าสารบ้าใครดูอะไรที่บ้าก็ดูก็บ้าก็ที่ยังบ้าที่อินดูว่าแต่ที่คิดที่ยังบ้าก็ที่อยากทราบตัวตัวมันที่คิดที่อาจจะรู้ชนะมาบ้าก็ที่อาจจะเราบอกกันไปได้ที่ยังมาเลยหายาตัวนั้นเป็นที่ดีที่ยังแต่ที่อยากทราบก็ตัวนั้นเป็นที่ดียังแต่ได้ดูว่าแต่ที่ก็ไปแค่ได้ไปที่กูสักแต่บางอย่างนี้อยากจะได้บอกกันได้ได้ไม่ได้ได้ดูว่าแต่ละแต่ให้รีวิวนี่ยังตัวเดียวสับแต่ละแต่เราพูดแต่เดียวไปที่อยากตัวอยากจะกันไปใครได้ดียังแต่ดูว่า she hamo he si amai and he ama hele o he ya ma hele mi o halai o kaio me hele I have say hamai o si ya ma hayu shi wa ya and kai la boko yan di shi wa ya fa la ya bo yan di bo ya ma yu sha ya wa ya mu gi sa ba ge zaka ba sha ya wa ya mu di ha ma di ha ma le ai so ko wa yan ba di ya ai du shi ma le he be ko shi ma ya Bahaya dai boshia mawaya mai kai o mo tishi kata ke pakai ke kapate kapati ke pakai ke kapati ke pakai ke apa ai ti be ata o pate ke ata kapati ke pada apa jo ata apa ke ti be pada apa ko pati ke ti ata apa jo ata tapaka te hete pakai di go sana mahaya bukula ya pati ya mai ti se ata di bota malai pe ko dia ahan di just ni ke te ko ta ko ta ke They're all bowing like this, all three of them, shoulder on shoulder.
Oh, thank you. But I heard 3 different voices, and maybe 3 different languages, right? Are they speaking the same light language, or do they each have their own language?
They each have their own. That's why there was first it was Erik, then it was Ryan, and then it was Adam, and that's why each one of them changed.
Wow.
That's when I asked him, are you all coming in or what? And he said, wait and see. So that's what it was.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
It's really strange. I felt airy in my heart. That was really cool. So I hope you guys also got something cool out of it. Now, what did I want to ask you? Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, what is activation? We'll get back to that. We didn't do an activation, but we could do that another time.
Actually, that was a form of activation because what they're doing is they're trying to activate healing in the hearts of those that are mourning Ryan.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
So this would be, if you want to classify, comfort healing for the loss of Ryan or something in that statement, that would be really good because that's why they were here. They were here for that. So that's a form of an activation. An activation is something, it's just a general term for almost like awakening something new within you, to giving you something that you don't have. An activation would be if you set your intention to start speaking light language. That can be an activation.
Oh, okay.
However, activations, like I said earlier, activations don't necessarily happen on the spot. They sometimes happen down the road. They can happen within days, hours, weeks, or months. I've had people come back 9 months later and say, oh my God, I woke up this morning, or I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm speaking light language, but they act for that activation 9 months earlier.
or the activation for the for healing of a loss that can happen
Yes,
later too, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Is this supposed to help just with the loss of Ryan? Not just, but or is it also intended to help us, anybody out there with a loss?
I would think that that would be a fair assessment of what they can do because they're capable of doing it all.
Okay, all right.
And that's why I say if a person, when they're listening to this, before they start listening, that's why I mentioned set your intention. If you want to set your intention for anything in particular.
Okay.
And another thing I want to explain too is light language. What we're creating are it's not only just the language, it's the vibrations that are created by the articulations of the words that are coming through, and they're multi-layered. They're multi-layered. So the more and more one listens to it, the more and more they receive. And it's kind of like verses to the Bible. If somebody's going through a strifeful time, I know I used to do this all the time. I just randomly open the Bible wherever I can, run my finger down the page and stop, and then read whatever that verse was. Now, I could do that 6 months later and find the same verse, but that same verse, when I read it, gives me different meaning, depending on what my needs are.
Yeah.
So that's how light language works as well.
That's when you say multi-layered, you mean each syllable has multi-layer vibrational frequency, or each word, or
the message that's coming through is multi-layered.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Oh, I see. So I kind of forgot to set the tent because I was busy worrying about putting on my headphones. So if you guys did forget, you could always go back and listen to it again. Okay, so how was it created? I mean, and why was it created? An actual language. I mean, they communicate over there just telepathically. So why did they need to create?
That was the hope. That was it. It was a form of source, God, giving us the ability to pray for what it is that we need that we don't know we need.
Yes, so
a form of prayer. When the mind doesn't know what to ask for, the mind doesn't know what to pray. The soul always knows what to pray.
Oh. So
and your higher self is also, through this language, is delivering to you what you need for the next step on your path when you use this as well.
So is it only meant for humans, to help humans, or?
Oh no, you can do it for your plants. You can do it for an insect if you want to. There's no bar on that. There's no stipulation. A lot of people sing. I can sing now in light language, and you sing it to the plants, and the plants do better. It's like anything that creates a vibration of joy and a vibration of love.
Okay.
Right. And
right,
that's
so what about aliens? Can you?
Yep.
So any life form?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
But spirits don't need it between themselves, do they?
No, because spirits just communicate, like you say. They're back and forth with each other. That's not a need.
Okay, so I was thinking, was it created by aliens or ancient Egyptians and stuff? So, but this is pretty cool.
You know what? A lot of people will speak, and I've seen this over and over again. Like the Stardust group, which you're familiar with, and other groups where they communicate with the aliens. Oftentimes, and in our higher selves, I mean, we've all lived many, many, many different lives, and we've all lived alien lives. Let's just see ET lives, alien life. And so some people will channel from that conscious source of that lifetime that they lived, and it will come out, and it will be totally different. And the very first time that happened to me was with one of the girls from the Audie's Angels, and this was like maybe their 5th or 6th time that I had shared the light language with them. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I shared the light language, and I had noticed how different it was from any of the others that I had done. And it was taxing my body really, really bad. And my guide popped in and said, ask them to back off. It was such a high vibration, coming from such a high vibration, that my human body wasn't dealing with it very well. So eventually my guide cut me off, but then my guide came back afterwards and said, I just want you to know that this entity had no ill intent for you physically at all. It's just that you didn't match up the vibration and your body couldn't take it, and I have to protect your body. So
you made it feel guilty, probably. Okay, so tell me about the service. The services you offer your clients? You can activate certain things like healing. You can activate the pineal gland.
What I do is, on my website, there's several different things that are there, but if they contact me personally and they have anything that they want to do, I can tell them whether or not I can help them with that or not. And if I can't, I can generally turn them on to somebody who can. Like, I'm not really good at scanning bodies and finding illness. I'm not good at that. I might be doing a channeling and all of a sudden I'll feel something somewhere in my body, and I won't know whether it's, right away, I won't know whether it's for the client themselves, something's going on in their body, and or a loved one that's passed that's telling me how they passed. Like, all of a sudden I'll get a belly pain or something. So I'll have to ask the client, and I'll say, are you having any intestinal problems or anything? Like, no. I said, well, do you have a loved one that passed from, oh, yeah. So that's why it comes in. So I don't really do medical stuff, but I know a lot of people who do. So I'll turn them over to somebody else.
Okay, what about getting rid of like attached negative things attaching to you, like, or possessions?
I don't do those either. My guides won't let me do those. My guides will not let me step into an energy that is not right for me.
All right, what other things
and
or can you offer the client? Or just name a few. I know there's tons of them.
Yeah, there is. Like I was saying, anything that they can think of, either I can do it and or I know people who can do that and I refer them out. But I do activations for light language. I do activations for healings. I do a lot of music, light languages with the different angels. I will send them there. I do channelings. I channel everything that can be channeled, right down to trees and plants and animals. And I even channeled a lizard one time.
Cool.
So, where somebody was really attached to this lizard and the lizard came through. So I can channel anything I can channel. The aliens I channel, the ETs I channel. So I have such a protective circle around me I think that's because I channel from such a high, even when I first met Erik, I remember asking Erik why. I was reading about all these different pranks and stuff, and I'm like, how come you never pranked me? And his answer, I know, he did manage to prank me once, just to let me know that he was thinking about me. But basically he said something it was out of a respect level or something. So I never really understood what he meant by that.
Well, let's
because I'm just me, Linda Lee, you know?
Yeah, Erik, what was that all about?
He's saying because of where she comes from, and I think it has a lot to do with me being a fractal of Mary, Mother Mary.
Oh, yes, that could be.
And I think there's some kind of a boundary for him, and but that kind of has relaxed because I channeled him and he's used the F-bomb with me, and he set off our fire horns or whatever you call them, fire detectors, one night, 2 nights in a row actually. Had my grandson come over and check all the batteries. They were all perfect, so I knew it was Erik.
Oh God.
And
well, I mean,
Erik,
why is that important? Because aren't we all one? And we're all, Mary is one, Linda is one in the collective, and that there's no good, better or worse, superior, inferior.
Well, that's what I thought too, because that's why I said it didn't make any sense to me. So hang on, what is he saying? Because even though we're over here, we still have certain boundaries.
Okay.
And this is not considered better than you or me or anybody else. It's just a boundary that, yeah, that a boundary that he's telling me that he wasn't ready to cross when I asked him the question, which was like 3-4 years ago. That was even before I even knew I was a fractal of Mary. I had no idea. But that's what he's saying. It's not a hierarchy, a low hierarchy. It's a boundary. He's calling it a boundary that he couldn't cross.
So what?
And I'm saying to him, but yeah, but you're crossing it now. I get your F-bombs all the time when you talk to me.
Yeah. So what would happen if you crossed that boundary, Erik?
He says nothing. He says nothing. He says, Mom, it's just like when you were bringing us up and you taught us that there were certain things that we couldn't do, or that we shouldn't do. It's the same kind of boundary. It's not that you were going to beat us up if we did it. It's just that you were trying to teach us what boundaries were. And he goes, and that's what I got when Linda asked me that question. I got that there were boundaries there. He says, yes, he is much more candid with me. He's telling me, you'll understand more when you come home, is what he's saying to me. You'll understand more when you come home.
All right. Well, let me ask one more question, and then we'll share how people can get in touch with you again. Can you activate a pineal gland, people's pineal glands?
I have never tried to do that. I have never had anybody ask me, but you're talking about the third eye. So
it's just to open up their abilities, their channeling abilities, and their thin out the veil a little bit.
But what it is, and what you're asking me is, can I totally 100% awaken another person? Because when you are awakening, that third eye is opening. And you don't need any super intervention, because the acts that are happening and taking place with you as you reach certain points on your path are, I'm going to use the word automatic. So for me to say, yes, I can go in and I can, activate that pineal gland, I feel like I would be overstepping a boundary, because it's in your life contract how and when and where that is going to happen.
Well, what about just a little bit of Drano, a little bit of Roto-Rooter, open it up a little bit. You don't have to make it fly.
Or a plunger.
Yeah, plunger.
Get the plunger out.
Really,
but I think, you're freezing out.
I know
yeah.
It's been happening. But it's like maybe asking you to activate the pineal gland, or open it up a little bit, or Roto-Rooter it out, is part of the path. You never know. Uh-oh, you're frozen too now.
No, you don't. Would like to know where the evidence. Uh-oh. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know how I would get a response back from a client telling me what happened, because I don't think they will know what happened.
Oh, that's true. All right. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Linda, share your site, please, if you would. Again.
Well, I have a website that's the standard www.channelingbylindalee.com. And then I have 2 Facebook pages. One is called Florida Mediums and More on Facebook, and the other one is called Light Language by Linda Lee Group.
Okay, sounds good. I will put those all right here, people. Thank you, Linda, for this.
Well, thank you very much, Elisa. I've enjoyed it very much.
It'd be fun.
And when you're ready to do the radio show, we'll do the radio show.
You just let me know, whatever Tuesday. I've got some of them that have people in it, but also, yeah, it'd be fun to have you on as one of the mediums to channel Erik on a topic or two.
That'd be great. I look forward to that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But then you have to be prepared to be super busy. Oof. All right.
That's okay. Also, my husband, I just wanted to bring it. You can cut this out at the end if you want to, but my husband is writing a book.
Oh, good.
He's writing a book on spirituality. He's writing a book about me and how I've awakened. And obviously you and Erik are going to be a key part. And
I'm
he
gonna
would
cut
like
that
to
out. Of
interview
course,
you.
if people would like to know, I think would love to know your story. It would be awesome. So
It's,
I'm going to keep it in. What's the name of the working title for the book now?
well, actually, he hasn't really named it yet,
Okay.
and he's just like, he's only like a quarter way, but he wants to interview you, Lisa.
Oh, anytime, anytime. I don't know if I have
Okay.
anything intelligent to say, but anyway, tell them that sounds great. And thank you guys for watching. Now, could you please subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.